You're now listening to the Adiel Gorel Show. Each episode, I'll bring you the latest news from my discussions with top health and wellness experts so that you can bring yourself into better health. Today, on the Adiel Gorel Show.
The fifth stage is Pratyahara, which is the internalization of senses. There are very few teachers that teach that. Guruji Iyengar himself did teach that. But then there are three additional deeper levels of yogic development, and that is dharana, which is concentration, dhyana, which is meditation, and samadhi, which is a kind of a fusion of oneself and our surrounds. So you become, the seer and the seen become one, unified, and this kind of unification, in a sense, is some kind of very deep awareness of you being part of everything else, and everything kind of blends in and becomes a whole.
Hi everyone, it's really a pleasure to be here with you again. Today I find it very exciting. I'm talking to a fascinating person who is about 7,000 miles away from where I'm located. Not that it makes any difference these days, but I was introduced to Rami Guissin by a very dear and old friend of mine who was raving about her meditation experience with him. Now, my friend's name is Shula, and she has a similar personality to me in some ways, and she really caught my attention when she said that out of all the meditation system that she's tried in her life, Rami's was the most effective one. So as a guest, we have Rami Guissin. Rami, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And it's a joy, really. And so let's begin. You developed a unique meditation methodology which you call Sync In, and which we will be speaking about here. Before we get into it, can you tell us a little bit about your own journey and how you got to this point?
Yeah. Well, my background is actually applied science. I'm still in the field of electro-optics, imaging physics, and algorithms, machine vision, and some aspects of artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. So I've got about 40 years of that in my background, and I have a PhD from Weizmann Institute in Israel. And actually, my bachelor's is from New York City, so that's where my teenage years I spent in the States. My English was much better at the time, but since my Army service, I've been in Israel. So my background is engineering and science, very much applied, and I'm still at it, doing a lot of R&D and development. About 20 years ago, I came across and joined a yoga class out of curiosity and out of need for some kind of introspection and self-development, I suppose. And it was an Iyengar class. And after the first lesson, the teacher, who was a friend of my sister's, she said, "Well, how did you like it?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not sure." Me being an engineering geek and all that, and I said, "Well," she asked, will you be here again? Will you visit us again?" And I said, "Probably." And then a couple of days later, I came in for the second class, and she looked at me, and at the end of class, she came over and said, "Rami, what's going?" And I said, "I'm staying." And I stayed for 20 years. After 3 years, I went to I took a teacher's course with her and others. and I became certified, and I taught for 17 years Iyengar Yoga. And Iyengar Yoga has therapeutic classes, restorative classes, and regular asana classes and pranayama. And I taught that for 17 years. Some 5 years ago, I developed a problem with my femur joint, um, and that kept me back for a while. And then came in COVID, and the studios closed up. They shut down, and I taught for another year or so using the Zoom platform. And then somehow I decided that I needed a change. Whether that change came through um, actually the philosophy of yoga was very much of interest to me because that's my natural tendency and curiosity. And people who are familiar with the yoga principles are also probably familiar with Patanjali's 8 stages of yogic development. And asana and pranayama, which are well known in the West, they are the third and fourth stages. The fifth stage is pratyahara, which is the internalization of senses. There are very few teachers that teach that. Guruji Iyengar himself did teach that. But then there are three additional deeper levels of yogic development, and that is dharana, which is concentration, dhyana, which is meditation, and samadhi, which is a kind of a fusion of oneself and our surrounds. So you become the seer and the seen become one, unified, and this kind of unification, in a sense, is some kind of very deep awareness of you being part of everything else, and everything kind of blends in and becomes a whole. Very, very not easy to explain and definitely not easy to achieve. But these three stages became of very much interest to me because they were not taught. They cannot be taught. And Guruji himself, in one of his last books in this life, noted that he teaches the first five, and the last three, it's the practitioners that have to develop their own skill and their own depth. And the concentration, meditation, and samadhi are that wholeness are not taught. He doesn't teach them. He guides his students and teachers, and that interested me very much. And I decided to kind of take on this really deep, probably the deepest aspects of yogic development according to Patanjali, and see if I can, in a sense, offer some kind of practice / exercise that can connect the practitioner to these deeper levels. Of course, they need to do asana, they need to know pranayama, and then from there they can continue to the deeper levels. That basically took place during the COVID outbreak. So this goes back, let's say, 4 years or 5 years, and the theories that actually are the background to this, I started earlier, and I have a book in place which is just waiting for the last 2-3 chapters of the actual exercise, that practical aspect of this theory and methodology, and then the book will come out as well, probably by the end of middle of next year. Right now, I'm focused on the exercise itself and bringing that out, establishing it, testing it in various groups, environments, segments of population, and I've did carry a couple of pilots, one of which Shula participated in, and very interesting feedbacks. So this is the background. This is where I come from, and that's how actually Sync In develop. Because I have this technology background on the one hand, and on the other side of the coin is my yoga background. That's how Sync In was born.
Well, thank you very much for sharing all of this. It's much nicer to know how things came to be. But let's go right into it. I have a couple of blurbs here that explain Sink In, but I think it would be of infinite usefulness more than this if you explain it to me and to our viewers and listeners.
Right. Well, Sink In stands for Synchronizing Inwards. How do you synchronize? In order to synchronize inwards, so the first question will be, well, why synchronize in the first place? So in science and engineering, in physics, the world, the cosmos, is synchronized. Atoms are synchronized, molecules are synchronized with their neighboring molecules and processes. Everything is synchronized. And even if you get a tsunami in place, that is synchronized because it had to do a kind of a reset in order to come through and to compensate for different forces that are ongoing. So synchronicity became of interest to me because I thought that, well, yoga in that respect is very synchronous. Well, at least the Iyengar yoga is very synchronous because you move, you do an asana, you breathe synchronously. If you do not breathe synchronously with your motion, it's just not going to work, and you're going to deplete. But then the question arose was, well, what about the mind? So Patanjali and most of meditation and yogic practices and exercises, they want to, in a sense, still or control the modifications or the fluctuations of the mind. Because the mind is in fact a function that we need to perform and exist and survive, and is very fast moving across different kinds of aspects of everything about us and our surround. So, and yoga and meditation usually refers to the mind as we want to quieten the mind. But on the other hand, we want to activate the body, and we want the breath to be synchronized with body. And my thought was, well, in order to go to the three deepest levels of the yogic development, which were concentration and meditation, for example, that will not happen if my mind is quietened or relaxed. It could be, and therefore I realized that for this kind of deep process and deep exercise, I need to activate the mind in order to synchronize it with my body and my breath. And that is the essence of synchronization. To synchronize two processes, you actually need them to be active. You cannot synchronize two processes where one of them is static or is quietened and not active. But how do you activate the mind but still remain sharp and remain focused and remain, I would say, rested, but active instead of relaxed and quietened but still controlled? So to synchronize your body in one way or another with the breath and the mind, you need to activate all three, and each one of them is a different domain, is a different modality. So the body is physical, the breath is kind of it's both physical and, in a sense, affecting your mental state. And then you have your mental consciousness that you need to concentrate the three. So Sync In synchronizes these three modalities, and that is the practice, that's the regime, that's the space in which you do your exercise, and it's done in a very special way that facilitates synchronization. So not
So
always easy to explain these
if I came
principles.
to
Yeah,
you,
sorry. Yeah,
if I came to you, so I'm trying to get it. So let's say I came to you and say, Rami, I would very much like to experience what my friend Chula did. Uh, can you generally describe what would I be doing? What would I be doing with my body, with my breath, with my mind?
okay. So Sinkin actually comprises two different sets of exercises. One set has a more, I would say, focus on movement, bodily movement, in which you stand. You don't run. You do not. You're not supine. You stand still, and you do torso motions like arm swings, twists, of various things, all synchronized with your breath. And at most, you're walking step by step uh, uh, where you stand. You just kind of walk, and that's it. This is the it's there are a set of exercises which are great because you can do it indoors, outdoors. You don't need any equipment. You just stand and you do these swings, and it synchronizes your whole thing. But it is, in terms of your mental process, it is fairly straightforward, and there's not much going there, but you learn synchrony. The other set, which is the set that basically really is the sync in methodology, is you sit. You can do it supine, but it's best to sit or just lie down. Some people do it before they go to sleep. Some people do it when they make up in the middle of the night and they cannot fall asleep, and they just do it supine 4 minutes, and they're and they sleep like a baby until the morning. So I've seen that in practitioners that I've done pilots with. But I think the most interesting and the deepest exercise is where you just sit in a comfortable position, um, um, as opposed to yogic seating, which is very you need to keep your spine straight, very erect. Here now, you're looking for comfort. You just want to sit. Of course, if you slump, then your breath will not be as easygoing. So you find your right seating, and then you do some breathing cycles, and at most, if you want to engage some aspect of rhythm and body, you just tap with your fingers. And the reason that you tap is obviously if we want to synchronize any process with another, there has to be a rhythm, there has to be a beat. So you create a beat, or for example, when the application which I am developing will generate a beat, and you can select your own specific rate or rhythm, you will tap. And you become a kind of your self drummer in a way, but you're just tapping on your thighs or your chest if you're supine, and you generate a rhythm which is good for you. So let's say, for example, if you want to, in musicians' terms, if you want to do a 4/4 pattern, you do 4 taps for an inhalation and 4 taps for an exhalation. The 4 taps of inhalation could be with the left hand, and the 4 taps of the exhalation will be with your right hand. So if you just sit there, and now after you exhale and you're empty, I don't know if you can hear my taps.
Yeah.
So what you've actually created is a kind of a uh, um, um, musical little element, which is basically rhythm. You can hear your breath through your nostrils. You're generating a sound. You're seated in the most comfortable way, and you're synchronizing your breath. So you breathe in 4 taps continuously. The taps are discrete, but the breath is continuous. And the other way, and when you exhale, same thing. Now, up to now, you synchronized body because you used some element of your body, a thumb, a finger, the tips of your fingers, something in your body did work. And then you breathe with it, and you synchronize between these two at a rhythm, at a rate, and a pattern that you selected. So you synchronized very easily body and breath. What happened and what was with the mind? Well, the mind was very busy because it's new, so you need to make sure that you're synchronized, etc. But then in order to synchronize the mind to the body and the breath, you go through a certain set of inner speech. In yogic history, they called it, thousands of years ago, they called it madhyana. Inner speech, and even in modern days, inner speech is considered as a developmental element in children and in sports. They teach the professionals to speak to themselves in order to concentrate, and whether you're a swimmer or a baseball batter or whatever it is, and you need to concentrate and focus. So you focus your mind by using inner speech. And when you do your taps and breathing synchronized, you synchronize the mind by saying special words. In a way, I wouldn't call it a mantra, because it is not a mantra. It is a process of, let's say, if I do 4 taps, there will be 4 words that I will repeat. 4 specific ones for the inhalation, 4 specific ones for the exhalation. So, for example, when you do a 4-4, you will inner speech silently, you will say, left tap, inhale, activate, experience. Right tap, exhale, contemplate, presence. What is the difference? According to this methodology, when you inhale, there is an activation going on. Of course, oxygen is being incorporated into every cell of your body. It's a huge wave of oxygen energizing all the cells of one's a trillion cells, all energized at once. They're synchronized. So there's an activation during the inhalation. The activation generates a certain experience, which is facilitated, and then there's other levels. But so when the left tap, the first word is just the first beat of 4, and you keep tapping just like you did before. But then you say the word, inner speech, inhale. So when you say inhale, your inhalation receives mental focus. So you are breathing, I would say, with awareness. You're aware of your breath because you inner speech, you say inhale. The third thing is activate. So you're able to focus your mental state on the fact that something is being activated. And the last word is experience, and it represents a whole spectrum of experiences that you can explore when you inhale. Now, when you exhale, it's the first right tap, just to give you the first beat of the 4 as you start exhaling. Then you say exhale. So you're mindfully and being very aware of this exhalation that takes place. But when you exhale, then you say contemplate. Why? Because when you inhale, there's an activate. And when you exhale, you have the opportunity to contemplate on what was activated. Every breath cycle, you have the opportunity to learn and to develop your ability to activate things when you inhale and to contemplate on that when you exhale. Every breath, every cycle. And the last one, if experience was the peak, the mental peak of your inhalation, in exhalation, the mental peak is presence. So experience when you inhale and presence when you exhale. Presence. And presence is the basis of being. So you're doing when you inhale and you're being when you exhale. You experience when you inhale and you're just present when you exhale. In a sense, you're concentrating and meditating in one thing every single breath cycle. And all this thing, when it integrates together, and when the experience and the presence receive I would say the depth or the context of what you want to meditate upon, it becomes a world on its own. And this is how this process connects you to your inner works, because it touches everything. And it's the practitioner's selection of what they would want to focus on, and it comes into the experience and the present. For example, this was just one of...
Okay. Yeah, of course.
That was just one example of trying to capture this in a very, very simple practice exercise. Of course, they become more and more involved because the experience and the presence aspects of it become more and more specific to your need or to your election, what you want to work on, etc.
Stay tuned for part 2 of this interview. Thank you for joining us today. I know you love what's coming next in part 2. Be sure to click the subscribe button for more videos.